The night was quiet on Valora 7. The twin moons hung low in the purple sky, and the wheat fields stretched out like a golden ocean under their pale light. Do-hwan sat on the porch of his small workshop, drinking cold tea and listening to the wind move through the crops. He liked nights like this. No customers, no broken machines, no problems. Just peace. Do-hwan was 34 years old. He had lived on this farming moon for 12 years now. Before that, he worked on cargo ships, fixing engines and life support systems. Before that, he grew up on Earth, in a small coastal town where his father taught him to repair fishing boats. His father always said the same thing. Everything can be fixed, son. You just need patience and the right hands. Do-hwan had the right hands. Everyone in the settlement knew it. Farmers brought him broken harvesters. Miners brought him dead drilling machines. Traders brought him ship engines that other mechanics had given up on. Do-hwan fixed them all. He never turned anyone away, and he never charged more than people could pay. He was thinking about sleep when he saw the fire in the sky dot at first. He thought it was a meteor. They were coming out here, burning up in the atmosphere and leaving bright trails across the darkness. But this one was different. It was too big, too slow, and it was getting closer. Do-hwan stood up. His teacup fell from his hand and shattered on the wooden porch, but he did not notice. He was watching the fireball grow larger and larger until he could hear it. A terrible screaming sound. Like metal tearing itself apart that it was a ship. The ship crashed into the wheat fields about 2 kilometers from his workshop. The impact shook the ground so hard that Do-hwan nearly fell over. A column of fire and smoke rose into the night sky, and the golden wheat around the crash site began to burn. Do-hwan did not think. He just ran. He grabbed his emergency kit from inside the workshop and sprinted toward the crash. The heat hit him before he even got close. The ship, or what was left of it, was a twisted mass of black metal, half buried in the dirt. It was small, maybe a personal transport or a fighter. Expensive, from the look of it. The kind of ship that rich people or military officers used. The fire was spreading fast. Do-hwan pulled his shirt over his nose and mouth and pushed closer. He could see the cockpit now, cracked open like an egg. And inside, trapped in the wreckage, was a woman. She was unconscious. Blood covered her face, red blood, human-looking. But her left shoulder was wrong. The skin and muscle had been torn away, and underneath, Do-hwan could see metal. Gleaming silver alloys, wires as thin as hair, tiny lights blinking weakly in the darkness. She was a cyborg. More machine than human, from the look of it. Do-hwan had seen cyborgs before. Workers with mechanical arms, soldiers with enhanced legs, pilots with neural interfaces. But nothing like this. Her technology was beyond anything he had ever encountered. It looked like art. It looked like it cost more than his entire moon. None of that mattered right now. What mattered was that she was dying. He used his cutting tool to slice through the metal trapping her legs. He was careful, precise, even though his hands wanted to shake. The fire was getting closer. Smoke filled his lungs. Sweat poured down his face and evaporated before it could drip. He worked faster. Finally, she was free. Do-hwan pulled her from the wreckage and carried her in his arms like a child. She was lighter than he expected. The machinery in her body must have been made from advanced materials. He ran up behind him. The ship exploded. The shock wave knocked him forward, and he fell, twisting his body to protect the woman. They landed hard in the dirt, but they were alive. The fire roared behind them, but they were far enough now. They were safe. Do-hwan lay there for a moment, breathing hard, staring up at the stars. Then he looked at the woman in his arms. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing was shallow. Silver fluid leaked from her damaged shoulder, mixing with the red blood on her skin. he should call someone. The settlement had a small medical clinic. There were authorities who handled things like crashed ships and mysterious strangers. That was the smart thing to do. The safe thing. But Do-won looked at her ship, burning in the field. He looked at her armor, scorched and damaged, but clearly military grade. He looked at the wounds on her body, not just from the crash, but older ones, scars, burns, the marks of someone who had been fighting for a long time. This woman was running from something, or someone. And if Do-won called the authorities, whoever was chasing her would find her. He was sure of it. He made a decision. Do-won carried the woman back to his workshop. He laid her on his workbench, pushing aside tools and spare parts to make room. Then he turned on every light he had and began to work. The damage to her shoulder was severe. The joint had been completely destroyed, not just bent or cracked, but shattered into dozens of pieces. The neural connectors that linked her brain to her mechanical parts were hanging loose, sparking weakly. The power cells that kept her systems running were almost empty. Do-won did not have the right parts. He did not have the right tools. He did not have any training in cybernetic medicine or advanced robotics. But he had patience. And he had the right hands. He worked through the night. He studied her systems, tracing wires and connections, learning how her body worked. He fabricated replacement parts from scrap metal, shaping them with care until they matched the broken originals. He spliced wires thinner than human hair, using a magnifying glass and steady fingers. He recharged her power cells using his own generator, hoping the voltage would not fry her circuits. The twin moons set. The sun rose. The burned wheat field smoked in the morning light. And still Do-won worked. The woman, whoever she was, never woke. But she did not die either. Her breathing stayed steady. Her heart kept beating. The silver fluid stopped leaking from her shoulder. By noon, Do-won had done everything he could. The repair was ugly, a patchwork of scavenged parts and improvised solutions. But it was solid. It would hold. He sat down on the floor next to his workbench, exhausted, covered in grease and silver fluid and sweat. He looked up at the stranger he had saved. "Who are you?" He whispered. She did not answer. She just slept, her chest rising and falling, her repaired shoulder gleaming under the workshop lights. Do-won closed his eyes. He would find out soon enough. 3 days passed. The woman drifted in and out of sleep, sometimes opening her eyes for a few seconds before falling back into darkness. Do-won stayed by her side. He fed her water through a small tube. He checked her vital signs using an old medical scanner he had fixed years ago. He watched the lights on her cybernetic systems, making sure they stayed green. On the first day, she spoke. Just one word, whispered so quietly that Do-won almost missed it. "Where?" "You're safe," he told her. "You crashed on my moon. I'm taking care of you." Her eyes found his face. They were dark brown, almost black, and they held something that Do-won could not name. Pain, maybe, or fear, or something older and heavier than both. Then she slept again. On the second day, she was stronger. She stayed awake for almost an hour, watching Do-won work on a broken water pump that a farmer had brought in. She did not speak. She just watched, her eyes following his hands as he took the machine apart and put it back together. "You are good at that," she said finally. Her voice was rough, like she had not used it in a long time. Do-won shrugged. "I fix things. It's what I do." "My shoulder," she said. "You fixed that too." "I tried. The parts I used are not as good as your original ones. But they should work." She raised her left arm slowly, carefully. The shoulder moved. Not perfectly. There was a slight delay, a tiny stiffness, but it moved. She made a fist, then opened her hand. She rotated her wrist. She bent her elbow. Something changed in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or disbelief. "This is impossible," she whispered. "This technology, only 3 people in the galaxy know how to repair it. And you are not one of them?" Dawan did not know what to say to that. He just handed her a cup of warm soup. "Drink this. You need to eat." She took the cup. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she drank. On the 3rd day, she was sitting up. Dawan had given her clean clothes, an old shirt and pants that had belonged to a traveler who never came back for them. She looked strange in the simple clothes, like a queen dressed as a farmer. Her posture was too straight, her movements too precise. Even injured and weak, she carried herself like someone important. "My name is Mira," she said. "I am a mercenary. I was ambushed by people who wanted me dead. My ship was damaged, and I crashed here." Dawan nodded. He did not believe her. The lie was written all over her face, in the way she paused before speaking, in the way her eyes moved to the left when she said her name. But he did not push. Everyone had secrets. He had learned long ago that pushing only made people run. "I'm Dawan," he said. "I run this repair shop. You can stay here until you're strong enough to leave." "Why?" she asked. "Why are you helping me? You don't know who I am. I could be dangerous." Dawan smiled a little. "You crashed in my wheat field. You were bleeding and broken. Should I have left you to die? Most people would have called the authorities. I'm not most people." She studied him like he was a puzzle she could not solve. Dawan was used to that look. People often found him strange. He was too quiet, too patient, too willing to help without asking for anything in return. In a galaxy full of selfish people, kindness was suspicious. "The people hunting me," she said slowly, "they will come here eventually. They will find the crash site. They will ask questions. If you are connected to me, they will hurt you. Then we should clean up the crash site," Dawan said. "I have a tractor. We can push the wreckage into the old mining pit south of here. No one goes there." She stared at him. "You would hide evidence for me? Lie for me? You don't even know what I've done. Have you killed innocent people?" The question hung in the air. Something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or memory. But she shook her head. Not innocent people. Never innocent people. It was not exactly a comforting answer. But Dawan had spent his life reading people, understanding what they really meant beneath their words. This woman had done terrible things. He could see it in her eyes, feel it in the weight she carried. But she had lines she would not cross. That was something. "Then I will help you," he said. "Eat your soup. We have work to do." They spent the afternoon cleaning up the crash site. Dawan drove his old tractor while the woman, Mira, walked beside it, stronger than she should have been after such serious injuries. They pushed the burned wreckage into the mining pit, covering it with dirt and rocks until nothing was visible. By evening, the wheat field looked almost normal. The burned area would regrow in a few weeks. The only evidence of the crash was a slight dip in the ground that could have been caused by anything. They walked back to the workshop as the sun set. The sky turned orange, then pink, then deep purple. The twin moons rose slowly, painting the world in silver light. "I don't understand you," Myra said quietly. "I have met many humans in my life. They always want something. Money, power, protection. But you want nothing from me. I want you to get better," Dawan said. "That's enough. Why?" He thought about the question for a while. Why did he help people? Why did he fix broken things? His father's words came back to him, but they were not the whole answer. "Because I can," he said finally. "Because you needed help and I could give it. That's all the reason I need." She stopped walking. Dawan stopped too. turning to look at her. The moonlight caught her face, and for a moment, she looked younger, softer. The hard mask she wore had slipped just a little. "In my world," she said, "kindness is a weakness. It gets people killed." "In my world," Do-Hwan replied, "kindness is a choice. It's the only thing that makes us human." She was silent for a long time. Then she nodded slowly, and they continued walking. That night, she slept in the small room behind his workshop. Do-Hwan slept on the porch, watching the stars and thinking about the strange woman who had fallen from the sky. He knew she was lying about her identity. He knew she was dangerous. He knew that helping her might bring trouble to his quiet life, but he also knew that some things were more important than safety. Some things were worth the risk. He closed his eyes and slept. And for the first time in 3 days, so did she, deeply, peacefully, without nightmares. Whatever storm was coming, they would face it together. The soldiers came on the 7th day. Do-Hwan was in his workshop, repairing a navigation computer for a trader who needed it by tomorrow. Mira was sitting in the corner, reading an old book about Earth history that he had kept since childhood. For the past few days, they had fallen into a comfortable routine. Do-Hwan worked, Mira recovered, and they shared meals and quiet conversations in the evenings. She was healing fast. Too fast, really. Her cybernetic systems were optimizing themselves, adapting to the crude repairs Do-Hwan had made. The stiffness in her shoulder was almost gone now. She moved with a fluid grace that made him think of dancers or predators. They had not talked more about her past. She did not offer, and he did not ask. But Do-Hwan noticed things. The way she always sat with her back to the wall. The way her eyes jumped to every sound, every movement. The way she sometimes stared at nothing, lost in memories that made her face go cold and hard. Whatever she was running from, it was worse than she had said. The first sign of trouble was the shadow. Do-Hwan glanced out the window and saw it pass across the sun. Something large, blocking the light for just a moment. He looked up and felt his stomach drop. Ships, dozens of them. Warships bristling with weapons, descending through the clouds like metal locusts. "Myra," he said quietly. She was already at the window. Her face had changed. The softness was gone, replaced by something cold and calculating. She looked like a different person. No, not a person. "A weapon. They found me," she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "I knew they would eventually. I just hoped for more time." "Who are they?" "A coalition. Many species, many planets, all united by one goal. They want me dead. Why? What did you do?" She turned to look at him. For a moment, he saw something in her eyes. Regret, maybe, or sorrow. Then it was gone. "I ruled them," she said. And they did not wish to be ruled. Before Do-Hwan could respond, the first shuttle landed outside his workshop. Soldiers poured out, wearing armor that gleamed in the sunlight. They were not human. Some had scales, some had too many limbs, some had faces that Do-Hwan could not read. But they all carried weapons, and they all moved with the discipline of professionals. A man stepped forward from the group. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that glowed faint blue. His uniform marked him as an officer, Admiral, from the symbols on his chest. "My name is Admiral Taiho," he announced, his voice amplified by speakers in his armor. "We are searching for a fugitive, a dangerous criminal who crashed on this moon 7 days ago. Surrender her to us, and no one else needs to die." Do-Hwan's heart was pounding. He looked at Mira. No, that was not her real name, was it? He looked at the woman he had saved, and he saw that she was afraid. She hid it well, but he could see it in the tension of her shoulders, the tightness around her eyes. She was going to run, or fight, or both. And either way, she would probably die. Do-Hwan walked to the door of his workshop and opened it. "Dohan, no," she hissed behind him. "Get back here. These people will kill you." He ignored her. He stepped outside into the sunlight, facing the admiral and his soldiers. 50 weapons pointed at his chest. 50 fingers rested on triggers. One wrong word, and he would be nothing but ash. "I don't know what you're talking about," Dohan said. His voice was steady. He was surprised by that. "No one crashed here. I live alone. I fix machines. That's all." Admiral Taiho smiled. It was not a nice smile. "We tracked her ship's signal to this location. We found debris in a mining pit nearby. And we detected her unique energy signature coming from your building." He tilted his head. "Would you like to lie to me again, human?" Dohan did not answer. He just stood there, blocking the door. "Step aside," Taiho said. "This is your last warning." "She's under my roof," Dohan replied. "She crashed here, hurt and alone, and I helped her. That's what people do. They help each other." "She's not people," Taiho spat. "She is a monster. A tyrant, a mass murderer. The blood of billions is on her hands. Step aside, or share her fate." Dohan thought about that. A monster, a tyrant, billions of deaths. The words were heavy, terrifying. They changed everything he thought he knew about the woman behind him. But then he remembered other things. The way she had thanked him for the soup. The way she had laughed at his terrible jokes. The way she had looked at him when he said kindness was a choice, like he had given her something precious. People were complicated. Even monsters could change. And everyone deserved a chance. "No," Dohan said. Admiral Taiho's smile disappeared. "Kill him." The soldiers raised their weapons. Dohan closed his eyes. And then the world exploded. Mira moved faster than anything Dohan had ever seen. She was beside him in an instant, then past him, then among the soldiers. Her repaired arm glowed with energy, not the clean, precise energy of her original systems, but something wild and raw. It crackled and sparked as she struck. 3 soldiers fell before anyone could react. Then 5, then 8. Dohan watched, frozen, as she tore through them like a storm through paper. She was beautiful and terrible, graceful and brutal. Every movement was perfect, economical, deadly. The soldiers fired at her, but she was never where they aimed. She danced between the bullets and the laser blasts, always one step ahead. In 12 seconds, 12 soldiers were dead. The rest fell back, fear in their eyes. Even Admiral Taiho looked shaken, his blue glow flickering. Mira stood in the center of the carnage, breathing hard. Silver blood dripped from her knuckles, her blood from the strain on her repaired systems. She looked at the Admiral with eyes that promised death. "Leave," she said. "Now, or I will end you all." Taiho's jaw tightened. For a moment, the Dohan thought he would attack anyway. But then the Admiral raised his hand, signaling retreat. "This isn't over," he said. "You can't hide forever. You can't protect him forever. We will return with a fleet, and we will burn this moon to glass." He turned and walked back to his shuttle. His surviving soldiers followed. One by one, the ships lifted off and rose into the sky, disappearing among the warships still hovering in orbit. Myra stood motionless until they were gone. Then her legs gave out and she collapsed to her knees. Dohan ran to her side. "Are you hurt? Is it your shoulder?" She looked up at him. Her face was pale, exhausted, but her eyes were bright with something like wonder. "You stood in front of them," she whispered. "You faced an entire army. For me," Dohan shrugged, trying to hide how badly his hands were shaking. "You were under my roof. That means something." She stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she began to laugh. It was a strange sound, broken and rusty, like she had forgotten how. "You impossible man," she said. "You ridiculous, impossible man." Do-hwan smiled. "Come on, let's get you inside. I need to recalibrate your shoulder. You broke it again." He helped her to her feet, and together, they walked back into the workshop. The war was not over. The Admiral would return. But for now, they were alive. And that was enough. The workshop was quiet. Outside, the farmers had fled to the underground shelters, afraid of the warships still circling in orbit. The settlement was empty, abandoned, waiting for the violence to come. Do-hwan sat at his workbench, carefully adjusting the servos in Myra's shoulder. She sat across from him, holding perfectly still as he worked. Her eyes were fixed on some distant point, lost in thought. "You should run," she said finally. "Take your things, get on a shuttle, and leave this moon. Go somewhere far away, where they will never find you." Do-hwan did not look up from his work. "I'm not leaving. You don't understand. When they come back, they will kill everyone here. Everyone you know. Everyone you care about. Because of me. Then we won't let them come back." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. One woman and one mechanic against a coalition fleet? Against the combined forces of 17 star systems? "You are brave, Do-hwan. But you are also insane." He finished his adjustment and set down his tools. Then he looked at her, really looked, meeting her eyes without flinching. "I think it's time you told me the truth," he said quietly. "All of it. Who you really are. What you really did. Why half the galaxy wants you dead." She was silent for a long moment. Her face was unreadable, a mask that had been perfected over centuries of politics and war. But then something cracked. The mask slipped, and underneath, Do-hwan saw exhaustion, fear, and deep, ancient sorrow. "My name is not Myra," she said. "It is Yuna, Empress Yuna of the Crimson Sovereignty, ruler of 17 star systems, conqueror of the Andromeda Rim." She paused. "The most feared warlord in galactic history." Do-hwan blinked. He had expected something bad. A criminal, maybe? A rebel leader. But this... "You're an empress," he said slowly. "You ruled 17 star systems." "I conquered 17 star systems," she corrected. "With fire and blood and terror. I built an empire from nothing, crushed every enemy who stood against me, and ruled with an iron fist for 200 years. 200 years. Do-hwan thought about that. She looked young, 30, maybe 35. But of course, with her level of cybernetics, age meant nothing. She could be 1,000 years old for all he knew. "The Coalition," he said. "Admiral Taiho. They're the people you conquered." "Yes, 3 years ago, my own generals betrayed me. They made a deal with my enemies, gave them the codes to my defenses, and attacked while I slept. I barely escaped. My flagship was destroyed. My loyal soldiers were killed or scattered. And I have been running ever since." She looked down at her hands, one flesh, one metal. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They were right to betray me. I was a monster. I burned planets that refused to surrender. I executed prisoners without trials. I built labor camps and filled them with millions. The things I have done." She stopped. Her shoulders shook slightly. For a terrible moment, Do-hwan thought she might cry. "Billions of lives," she whispered. "Billions of deaths. All because I wanted power. All because I was afraid of being weak." The workshop fell silent. Outside, the wind moved through the empty streets, carrying the smell of burned wheat. Do-hwan sat very still, processing everything she had told him. He should be horrified. He should be disgusted. The woman in front of him was responsible for more death than any single person in history. She was, By her own admission, a monster. But when he looked at her, he did not see a monster. He saw a tired woman who had carried an impossible weight for too long. He saw someone who was finally facing the truth of what she had become. He saw pain so deep that it had become a part of her, woven into every fiber of her being. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because you deserve to know. Because you risked your life for me, and you should understand what you were protecting." She met his eyes. "And because I want you to run. Now, while you still can. Before I destroy you too." Do-hwan stood up slowly. He walked to his tool rack and selected a small calibration device. Then he walked back to Yuna and held out his hand. "Give me your arm." She stared at him. "Did you not hear what I said? I am a monster. I have killed billions. I am the reason. Your shoulder is going to need recalibration after what you did today," Do-hwan interrupted. "The energy discharge damaged some of the connections. If I don't fix it now, you'll lose motor function within a week. Do-hwan, sit down. Give me your arm. And please be quiet. I need to concentrate." She stared at him for a long moment. Her expression shifted through several emotions: confusion, disbelief, something that might have been hope. Then, slowly, she sat down and extended her arm. Do-hwan began to work. "You're not afraid of me," she said after a while. "It was not a question. Should I be? I've burned planets, mechanic. And right now, you're sitting in my shop with a busted servo relay. Planets can wait. This can't." Silence. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. It was a real laugh this time. Warm, surprised, almost innocent. It transformed her face, making her look younger and lighter. "You are the strangest person I have ever met," she said. "I tell you, I am a genocidal tyrant, and you offer to fix my arm." "I fix things," Do-hwan said simply. "It's what I do. I am not a thing. I am a person. A terrible person." He paused his work and looked at her. "You're still a person. That means you can change. That means you can choose to be different. The past is fixed, but the future isn't. After everything I've done, you think I can just change?" "I don't know," Do-hwan admitted. "But I know you can try. And trying is the first step." She was quiet for a long time, watching him work on her arm. The calibration was delicate, requiring absolute precision. Do-hwan focused completely, his world narrowing to wires and connections and the soft glow of her cybernetics. "No one has ever talked to me like you do," she said finally. "Not in 200 years. Everyone fears me or hates me or wants something from me. But you just see me. I see what's in front of me," Do-hwan said. "A woman who crashed in my field. A woman who needs help. That's enough." She reached out with her free hand and touched his face, gently, almost tenderly. Her fingers were warm. He had not expected that. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything?" Before he could respond, an alarm began to blare. Do-hwan looked up, his heart pounding. Through the window, he could see the sky filling with light. The warships were descending. Admiral Taiho had returned. "They're going to bombard the settlement," Yuna said, her voice suddenly cold and hard. "The Empress was back. They don't care about capturing me anymore. They just want me dead. Is there anything we can do?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. A fierce, dangerous smile that made Do-hwan's blood run cold. "Yes," she said. "There is." She walked to the window and placed her palm against the glass. Her eyes closed. Her cybernetics hummed with energy dot, and somewhere in the depths of space, hidden in the darkness between stars, 17 dormant warships received a signal they had not heard in 3 years. The Empress was calling them home. The sky burned. Admiral Taiho's fleet opened fire on the settlement, raining destruction from orbit. Buildings exploded. Streets turned to craters. The wheat fields that Do-hwan had watched grow for 12 years became oceans of fire, stretching to every horizon. He stood in the doorway of his workshop, watching everything he had built disappear. His home, his life, his peace. All of it, gone in seconds. Yuna stood beside him, her face calm and cold. Her cybernetics glowed with power, pulsing in rhythm with something only she could hear. "They're coming," she said quietly. "Who?" Before she could answer, the sky tore open. 17 dreadnoughts ripped out of hyperspace directly above the Coalition fleet. They were massive, each one the size of a small moon. Their hulls painted the deep crimson of dried blood. They were old, battered, scarred from 1,000 battles, but they were still terrifying. The Crimson Sovereignty had returned. "Loyalists," Yuna said, and for the first time since Do-hwan had met her, she sounded happy. "Officers and soldiers who refused to betray me. They've been hiding for 3 years, waiting for my signal." The battle was brief and brutal. The Coalition fleet had numbers, but the Sovereignty ships had power and fury. They tore through Admiral Taiho's forces like wolves through sheep, their weapons leaving trails of fire across the sky. Do-hwan watched, unable to look away. He had never seen war before. Not real war. The scale of it was beyond anything he could imagine. Thousands of ships, millions of lives, the fate of worlds decided in minutes. Within an hour, it was over. The Coalition fleet was destroyed. Burning wreckage filled the orbit of Valora 7, falling like meteors into the ocean and the empty farmland. A shuttle descended from the largest dreadnought, a ship called the Eternal Dawn, and landed outside Do-hwan's ruined workshop. The door opened, and soldiers poured out, their armor gleaming crimson. They dropped to their knees the moment they saw Yuna. "Empress," the leader said, his voice shaking with emotion. "We never gave up hope. We knew you would return." Yuna walked forward slowly. Her simple clothes were dirty, her face smudged with smoke and ash. She looked nothing like an empress. But the soldiers did not seem to care. To them, she was everything. "Admiral Taiho," she said. "Where is he?" "Captured, Empress. He's being held aboard the Eternal Dawn." Her eyes went cold. "Bring me to him." She started toward the shuttle, then stopped. She turned back to look at Do-hwan, who was still standing in the doorway of his destroyed workshop, covered in dust and silent. "Come with me," she said. Do-hwan hesitated. "I'm just a mechanic. I don't belong on a warship." "You belong wherever I say you belong." She smiled slightly, a real smile, the kind he had seen only a few times. "Besides, your work isn't finished. My shoulder still makes a clicking sound when I rotate it. Very annoying." Do-hwan looked at the ruins of his home, the workshop where he had spent 12 years. The life he had built, piece by piece, now nothing but rubble. Then he looked at Yuna, the most feared woman in the galaxy, the conqueror of star systems, the monster who had burned planets, the person who laughed at his jokes, who thanked him for soup, who had looked at him like he was the only real thing in a universe of shadows. He picked up his toolbox, the one thing that had survived the bombardment, and walked toward the shuttle. "That clicking sound is probably the joint connector," he said. "I can fix it in an hour." They boarded the shuttle together. The soldiers stared at Do-hwan with open confusion. Who was this dirty human? And why was the Empress treating him like an equal? But no one dared to ask. The Eternal Dawn was even larger on the inside than it looked from outside. The corridors stretched forever, lined with crimson banners and portraits of past rulers. Soldiers and officers stopped and bowed as Yuna passed, their eyes wide with relief and joy. She ignored them all, leading Do-hwan deeper into the ship until they reached a holding cell. Inside, bound to a metal chair, was Admiral Taiho, He looked smaller now, weaker. The confidence was gone from his face, replaced by fear. He knew what was coming. "Admiral," Una said, her voice like ice. "You hunted me for 3 years. You killed my loyal soldiers. You tried to burn an innocent settlement just to get to me." Taiho said nothing. His blue glow flickered weakly. "I could make your death slow," she continued. "I could make you suffer for days, weeks, months. I have the technology. I have the knowledge. And I have very good reasons." She paused. For a moment, the old Una was back. The tyrant, the monster, the woman who had burned worlds. Her eyes were cold and terrible. Then she glanced at Doan. He did not say anything. He did not need to. He just looked at her, steady and calm, believing in the person he knew she could be. Una turned back to Taiho. "But I'm trying to be different," she said. "So I will give you the mercy you never showed me. A clean death, painless." She raised her hand. A single pulse of energy, bright and brief. And Admiral Taiho was gone. Silence filled the cell. Una stood motionless for a long moment, staring at the empty chair. Then she turned and walked out. Doan followed her. They went to the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, a vast command center filled with screens and officers and the hum of power. Una stood at the main viewport, looking down at Valora 7. The settlement was still burning, smoke rising from the ruins. "That moon is now under the eternal protection of the Crimson Sovereignty," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the bridge. "Anyone who harms it or anyone on it answers to me personally. Is that understood?" "Yes, Empress," the officers replied in unison. She turned to her chief of staff, a tall woman with silver hair and cybernetic eyes. "Begin relief operations. Send supplies, medical teams, construction crews. I want that settlement rebuilt within the month. Better than before. It will be done, Empress." Una nodded. Then she looked at Doan and smiled. "There's a position I need to fill," she said. "Chief Engineer of the Imperial Fleet, responsible for maintaining all ships, all systems, all technology in the Sovereignty. It's a big job, important. The person who takes it would have power, resources, and influence beyond anything they could imagine." Doan raised an eyebrow. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a life, a purpose, a chance to fix things on a scale you never dreamed possible." She paused. "And a chance to keep fixing my shoulder. You're the only one who understands how it works now." He thought about it. The quiet life he had loved was gone, destroyed by fire and war. He could try to rebuild it, but it would never be the same. And honestly, he was not sure he wanted it to be. There was a woman in front of him who was trying to change, trying to become something better than what she had been. She needed help. She needed someone to remind her of her humanity, to keep her grounded when power threatened to consume her. She needed a mechanic. "I have conditions," Doan said. Everyone on the bridge gasped. No one made conditions with the Empress. But Una just smiled. "Name them. First, you stop burning planets. No more civilian casualties. No more terror tactics. You want to rule? You do it with justice, not fear." "Agreed." "Second, you listen to me. Not about military strategy or politics. I don't know anything about those. But about people. About kindness. About being human." "Agreed." "Third." He paused, a small smile playing at his lips. "You let me name my own quarters. I've always wanted to live in a room called the Fixing Place." She laughed. Really laughed, bright and warm and surprised. The officers on the bridge stared at her like they had never heard the sound before. Most of them probably had not. "Agreed," she said. "Welcome to the Crimson Sovereignty, Chief Engineer Doan." 6 months later, rumors spread across the galaxy. The Empress has returned. But she's different now. Softer, more merciful. She still conquers, but she also builds. She still punishes enemies, but she also forgives. And she has a human, a mechanic. He fixed her shoulder, and she gave him an empire. They say he walks the halls of the Eternal Dawn like he owns the place. They say the most terrifying woman in the galaxy listens to him, laughs at his jokes, takes his advice. They say she's changed because of him. Do-hwan didn't care about the rumors. He didn't care about empires or power or fear. He just fixed things. Engines, weapons, life support systems, cybernetic shoulders. And Yuna, it turned out, had a lot of things that needed fixing. But that was okay. Do-hwan had patience. And he had the right hands.